Thank you, Alejandro, for the tag. Says, at Hero Hey, I can't believe this. Okay, so this situation actually has quite a bit of context I'm going to need to attempt to give you. I'll do my best. Please consider liking and subscribing if you find this sort of segment interesting. And like I said, I'll do my best to cover this. So here we go. We've got the one and only Naganuma Hideki, or Naganuma, I suppose is what he's going with now, composer of Jet Set Radio and over 300,000 followers on Twitter. Now, this is just my interpretation, and you may have a completely different interpretation than I have. However, I believe Hideki is a good dude. I think he's trying to understand the younger generation, so to speak, and he tries to, be nice to young people and things like that. Where this gets complicated is he has also been appealing to the Twitter police crowd, the type who make very prejudicial statements and the type who advocate for violence against people. Keep all that in mind as we continue. After the recent passing of the former Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe, which if you're out of the loop on, I'm going to assume you're not, however, if you are, I've got some segments on that you're welcome to take a look at. And Hideki says, today an unthinkable and unbelievable incident occurred in Japan. The Japanese people are deeply shocked and saddened. Mr. Abe, you were the admirable leader of Japan, second to none in the world. Just rest in peace. Further context for me to give you, just know that there's been quite a number of people on Twitter celebrating Abe's assassination and even praising the assassin. It's one thing to dislike the guy and criticize him, his political career, his policies, although even then I would question how appropriate it is to do such immediately after his assassination. Still, it's one thing to do that as opposed to what we're seeing from a lot of people where they are just celebrating the what occurred and praising the guy who did it, and others are now taking the opportunity to smear Abe. Yes, very brave, never saying anything about him until he's deceased. With all that said, and now returning to Hideki, I think you might see where this is going. In a follow-up tweet, Hideki would add this, essentially calling out the people who are responding to him, saying that his take was an L take and mourning Abe's passing, and all that sort of thing as well. And once again, a lot of those people are his own followers, the same people that he's been trying to appeal to for a while now. And here's the issue. Once again, let me try to make this very clear. With respect, Hideki is on the lower end of middle-aged, and as I said, I believe he's trying to understand younger people and appeal to them. I think he has good intentions overall, at least from what I've seen. However, in trying to appeal to this demographic on Twitter, he has also inadvertently appealed to the Twitter police crowd. I'm not talking about people who want equal rights and things like that. That's all fine and well. I'm talking about the people who harass others and then play the victim. People who make prejudicial and bigoted statements and celebrate and even advocate for violence. Now in this segment, as you can see and will continue to see, Hideki seems to be having a bit of a reality check. In yet another follow-up tweet, he says, OMG, I'm honestly surprised at your replies. Do you really think that people you don't like should be Minecrafted, should be ended, their life should be taken, whatever you want to fill in the blank there with? And you can see a poll that also he ran where 33% of people actually say, yeah. Let me just point out that this literally says people you don't like. The guy at the gas station who overcharged you that you don't like, yeah, that should happen to him. Like, dude, this can be used so loosely. It's insane to me that a third of the people that voted on this are like, okay, yeah, their life should be ended. Oh, Hiro Hey said something that you don't like about an anime character. Oh yeah, Hiro Hei's life should be ended. Like, dude, there's so much absurdity that this would apply to. And again, let me point out that most likely, at least in my humble opinion, the people voting yeah and advocating for this sort of violence have likely never experienced violence personally in their lives. Like, dude, I have seen death in front of me multiple times. I have seen grown men cry. I had my coach blow his ACL out when he was trying to teach people a certain move in BJJ. Hearing a grown man, especially your coach, scream in pain like that, it sticks with you. It's disturbing. It's shocking, however you want to put it. Even if it's someone you dislike. Again, let me emphasize that these people probably don't know what violence is like. And you know what also backs up what I say? You can watch a lot of people on YouTube that are from prison, and a lot of them talk about how they're completely changed now. They don't want violence in any way, shape, or form. And these are people who had personally experienced immense violence to the extent that I can't do it justice talking about it in this video. And let me just clarify that a little bit more. I'm not talking about them being on the receiving end of the violence. I'm saying these are guys who committed immense amounts of violence to other people in prison. They did what they have to do, and they don't want to do that stuff anymore. And it's not because they just don't want to go back to prison. You can see it in their eyes when they talk about this stuff. They legitimately feel awful about what they did. Some of them even got PTSD from what they had to do. So if I'm going to be preached to about violence from anybody, am I going to listen to the Twitter cop who's probably never experienced violence and likely actually lives a very privileged life, or the dudes who have actually been to prison, for example, experienced such, and are telling you that it's not a good road to go down, that it always ends bad? Returning to Hideki, he would also make these series of follow-up tweets reading, "This world is turning to the idea that only you or your country should be happy. Sad to say." Also saying, "People on Twitter are as radical as ever." To which he would get some responses like this reading, "You kind of chose your audience, TBH." And you can just see a bunch of similar comments like that in the quote retweets, for example. I don't want to read all of these. We'll just scroll through some. Another one reads, "He's starting to see." Some more, "He's learning. He's almost there, bros." I'm just reading half of that one. Another says, "You did that to yourself, Mr. Hideki. You are solely responsible for amassing such audience." You got a thinking emoji here. A couple more. Looks like he finally gets it. And conversely, this one who says that the people cheering on the political violence and what happened to Abe are based. And they make these claims and they're so serious about it, though, that they censor it, even using freaking letters and asterisks to censor it. Also, like I said, people who often say things like that have never personally experienced violence in their life and tend to be very privileged, actually. And you know what? Making this sort of statement while having the @ChongYunhaver, a character in Genshin Impact, I gotta make the reasonable assumption that this person's biggest concern in life, their biggest issue in life, is probably having enough Primogems. And ultimately, Hideki ended up making this tweet talking about how he will essentially go back to just joking around and that he's lost followers when he tries to talk about serious things. Now, you know, it's actually not a bad thing per se. I do talk about oftentimes how you see like voice actors, for example, getting overtly political. And it's like, dude, we just want to enjoy your work and your entertainment. You know, not even voice actors. You see a lot of celebrities as well, like Hollywood types. It's like, man, we just want to watch your work, not get preached to about your political views. I mean, heck, we see the same thing in localizations, for example, too. You'll have the Japanese IP changed in some situations to overtly include Western, biased, partisan political views that had nothing to do with the original material. Although, I would like to make a clear distinction here as well. I don't think it's entirely fair to say that Hideki was getting overtly political in the full context where he's a Japanese citizen mourning the passing of Shinzo Abe. That's really it. He wasn't talking about policy. He wasn't really preaching to people per se. He made a post mourning Abe's passing, and that was really it, at least from what I saw. Of course, you also know how that all ended up going, and well, that's why we're here now. In closing, we also have an interesting exchange here from Shiro and this person, Andrew, in response to the tweet that Hideki made with the poll where one-third of people voted that they're okay with, you know, ending the life of people they simply dislike. Where Shiro says, "That's your audience, all right, people who pretend to be good but are horrible inside." Andrew responding saying,
"And 2/3 who are cowards who would let their government end their life for any reason because it would be very rude and horrible to fight back."
Now, I want to show this because this is actually a strategy that Twitter police use fairly often where they completely misrepresent an argument and or try to change the meaning of words, argue semantics, things like that. Because once again, if we go back to the actual poll that Hideki made, it simply says, "Do you really think that people you don't like should have their life ended?" People you don't like, not specifically talking about like fighting back against a corrupt government. This person completely misrepresents the poll to try to suit their narrative. And that's the segment, a little bit of a look into how Twitter police operate and what seems to be quite a lesson, quite a wake-up call for Hideki himself. Let me know what you think in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this coverage. Once again, if you did, please consider liking and subscribing. I'll see you in the comments and tomorrow for the next segment.